Right then, it's time to talk about Call of Duty Vanguard, the next game in the Call of Duty franchise. I got all the information that you need, including details on single player, multiplayer, zombies, and Warzone. Everything that I got told in a behind closed doors event last week that was put on by Sledgehammer Games. So, without further ado, here's everything you need to know about Call of Duty Vanguard. Starting off with the setting, Vanguard is a World War II title, and it follows on from the work that Sledgehammer did on their 2017 title. That game was heavily inspired by the Western Front and the American forces. Basically, all of the action was set in Europe. The team at Sledgehammer thought they could go bigger, and Vanguard takes the war to a global scale, brings in the Eastern Front, North Africa, and the Pacific Front, which according to Sledgehammer is going to increase the scope of the game quite drastically. The game is historically inspired, and it's rooted within the time period, but the game isn't beholden to it, so many of the characters and the stories that are being told, they're inspired by real-life events and locations. There's no revision of history happening here, but the stories that Sledgehammer is creating, they're between the lines of this huge tide-turning battle that happened across the globe. Sledgehammer is pushing for what they call a down-the-barrel experience, the core feeling of the game. I'm going to quote Josh Bridge here, he's the game director on Vanguard, because he explained it quite well. This is the core feeling of combat, the gunplay. It's something we always invest in year over year, the feel of the experience. We're taking that a step further. It's the tone and the feel of it, and we're using this hammer versus scalpel label. Back in World War II, it wasn't like the modern day Tier 1 operators. What we see is very visceral and raw in World War II. It's you or I on the battlefield and how you would deal with all those crazy situations. And we want to get that energy, impact, and bluntness across. Now, Josh also went on to say that they have this creative through line for the game. And that's that as World War II ended, we saw the birth of these special forces groups. They were in their infancy. The campaign is going to focus quite heavily on this. At the end of the war, Allied leadership, they identified lots of soldiers that were operating above and beyond what was expected of them, these slightly unorthodox characters, and brought them together in small groups to execute these really important tasks. The days of running massive armies across battlefields, that was coming to an end, and this new world of expert strike forces was coming through. Now, as a part of this behind closed doors presentation, I did actually get to watch a section of the single player campaign. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I know that lots of people out there will want to experience that for themselves, but I picked out several gameplay features from within the gameplay that I watched, and I want to list those for you so you can get a general idea of what kind of gameplay they're going for here, and then I'll move on and talk a bit more about the campaign characters. So the gameplay showed a pretty comprehensive movement set. You had the obvious running, crouching, vaulting, all that usual stuff, but I picked out a couple of crouch slides into cover. The running animations, they looked extremely smooth, and there was this system in place where when you looked around with your character in first person, there was like a slight delay on the weapon moving in that direction that you looked. So it was almost like a free look animation, but then the weapon would catch up with where you were looking. I'm not sure if that's final or not, it might be changed in the future, but it did look kind of cool with reference to the gameplay. The reload animations, they were really slick, some iconic weapons in there, the Kar 98 being reloaded via the receiver at the top with a clip of ammunition, and there were ADS reload animations as well, like Modern Warfare 2019. You could also peek doors, like you could in Modern Warfare. You could slightly open them and then you could push them open completely. There was light destruction of doors and surfaces within the level that I got to see, people shooting out tables, destroying chairs and things like that. And the lighting was very, very detailed. Now bear in mind, this is all campaign footage, and obviously it's all early footage, it's not final, so things could have been cranked to the max to make them look as good as they were. No idea if it will look like that when the game launches, but from what I got to see, it did look pretty impressive. So for the campaign, Sledgehammer will be telling stories of soldiers with special skill sets and unorthodox personalities. It's the birth of special forces. The story starts with what their mission was and what they were going after. And it really focuses around the antagonist in the story, Heinrich Freisinger, who is inspired by Heinrich Müller, chief of the Gestapo. Now obviously here, Sledgehammer is trying to tell a fictional story that's inspired by real events of World War II. At the end of the war, Berlin was falling and it was surrounded by the Red Army, and the Nazi leadership, they were keen to keep the ideology of the party moving forward despite what was looking more and more like defeat. The Allies, they were aware of this. It was something called Project Phoenix, and they set about to build a special forces unit that could infiltrate Berlin and try and squash this all before it started. This unit makes up the rest of the campaign characters. First of those is Arthur Kingsley, a character based on Sidney Cornell, who was a British paratrooper who jumped the night before D-Day as part of Operation Tonga. He is known as the leader of this group. Then we have Polina Petrova, a character based on Ludmila Pavlyuchenko, I think that's how it's pronounced, known as the Lady of Death during the war. She killed so many German officers, she was infamous among the German army, and remains to this day the most successful female sniper in history. Third character is Wade Jackson, an American fighter pilot based on Vernon McKeel, who fought in the Battle of Midway and sunk 2 Japanese aircraft carriers. And lastly, we have Lucas Riggs, an Australian soldier based on a man called Charles Upham, who spent his time during World War II fighting in North Africa in the intense heat, battling Erwin Rommel and his German soldiers in armoured warfare. So that pretty much covers the single player. We'll now move on and talk about the multiplayer, arguably the thing you want to know about alongside Warzone. This is really when that down-the-barrel experience is going to come into play, having a weapon in your hands and fighting it out across a bunch of maps set during World War II. So let's get some of the big reveals out of the way first of all. There will be 16 6v6 multiplayer maps at launch. They'll be spread out across the Western Front, Eastern Front, North Africa, and the Pacific. There will then also be 4 2v2 maps on top of that, bringing you up to a total of 20 multiplayer maps at launch. Nobody mentioned gunfight, but I'm assuming 2v2 means gunfight. Plenty to get your teeth stuck into right away, 20 maps at launch, that's pretty awesome. I didn't get to see what these maps were called. I only got to see a very small amount of multiplayer gameplay, and I'll talk about that in a moment on another topic. Gunsmith is making a return, along with your recognisable lineup of World War II weapons, although again the team didn't go into detail on what those weapons would be at launch. With regards to Gunsmith specifically, there will be a couple of new categories being added into the system, with custom ballistics and ammo types. Those will be available alongside the other categories that you've come to know from Modern Warfare and Cold War. Sledgehammer is also adding some new features to multiplayer combat. One of those is that you can now mount your weapon on surfaces and then move it around whilst you're mounted. So you can sort of slide it across a surface like a table or a ledge or something like that. And as you're moving whilst you're mounted, you can also shoot your gun and it will give you an accuracy bonus at the same time. I'm personally not too sure on that one, but hey, we'll see how it plays out. No doubt there'll be a beta that we can get our hands on and we can test these things. And you'll also now be able to blind fire over cover whilst you get to see a sneak little peek as you do so. So it'll be like an occluded view and you're like sticking your gun over cover. Think like Gears of War where you fire your gun over your head but in first person, that kind of stuff. Then there's something called reactive environments. This is essentially bringing destruction into the Call of Duty multiplayer, so the map around you is going to evolve and change as a match unfolds. You can take out these individual boards in certain areas and you can shoot through to a different angle, use it as a power angle on somebody else. In some gameplay that I got to see, there was like this tiled wall in the center of a room, and that can be shot out and it reveals another path behind it. And obviously that's a different angle where somebody used to be able to run in cover and now the cover's not there. Then there's a bookshelf that you could shoot out and you can see straight across the room. You could shoot off the blinds of a window that was occluded and now you can shoot out of that window, or you can throw grenades in and stuff like that. Certain walls, they could be blown right out as they get more and more damage through a round. That's really going to change how certain maps flow, and the pacing will change as you play on. And when grenade explosions go off in the environment, or any kind of explosion, it's going to react realistically. So some things may break, they might get thrown out of position. The lighting is also adaptable as well, so depending on what happens during the match, the lighting will react and realistically reflect the damage done. Let's say a wall got smashed out and then sunlight's coming through, or a window shutter got destroyed and the light's coming through that as well. It's all going to update and reflect in real time. Sledgehammer are also introducing something called combat pacing. The way it was described to me was like a sort of scaling feature that affects all the gameplay elements. So on one end, it can be geared to really heighten the tension by reducing player numbers, and that makes each shot count in a way that it didn't before. Or it can be swung the other way in something called blitz combat pacing, where everything is cranked to the max, there's max player numbers, pure chaos across the boards. From the presentation, I got the information that this will be done through a specific playlist, that you can select. And then it sounds like the team at Sledgehammer will control what kind of combat pacing is on offer in that playlist, and they'll change it from time to time to really freshen up the experience. Beyond that, there wasn't a huge amount of detail, so I'm guessing we'll get some more in the future. And then there's Champion Hill. This is a new game mode type coming to Vanguard. It's something that I got to learn about at the event, but unfortunately, I'm not allowed to tell you about it yet. Wow, sad. Activision has asked that I not reveal that information right now, but it will be revealed at a later date. And now, moving on to those final two parts, away from classic multiplayer onto Warzone and Zombies. We'll start with Zombies. Treyarch is going to be leading and developing this, so there is a big crossover between the two studios here, and it's going to allow Treyarch to tell a prologue of the Black Ops Cold War zombie storyline. Now, personally, I know I've not paid too much attention to that, but I know a lot of people out there love zombies, and this will be very good news for a lot of people, I think. And then for Warzone, some big stuff is happening. You'll have just seen the big Warzone Vanguard reveal that happened today, so you'll actually have a good idea of what's happening, and you'll know what I didn't know before making this video, even though I knew something else. Whatever. There's some stuff I need to tell you about, some official information that I can share. Raven is going to be leading development on a brand new Warzone map that will launch later this year. It will also feature a new anti-cheat system across Warzone when the new experience launches. It shares the same tech as Vanguard, so that means seamless weapon integration from the main game, as well as operators being drawn across as well. It's going to introduce an all-new metaverse that connects Vanguard, Black Ops Cold War, and Modern Warfare. And together with Vanguard, Warzone is going to offer a massive calendar of free post-launch content. So that's basically everything you need to know about Call of Duty Vanguard and Warzone, all of which is coming later this year, and I'm sure there will be plenty more information dropping in the near future, as well as some gameplay if we didn't get to see that in the full reveal trailer. I haven't actually watched that yet, so again, you'll have seen that before I have. Make sure you subscribe for more Warzone content. Full coverage of all things Vanguard will be here on the channel, as well as more Warzone chaos later this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.